and find some additional resources. So there we go. I'm assuming you guys are grade 1 and 2. That's who we're focusing in on today. I'm hoping you have at least one of your kits with you, but if not, you can just jot down a few notes. Will be recorded. You can come back to it, or if you've got a friend that couldn't come today, they might want to spend some time to work through some of the things that we are working through. So I'm just curious to know if you can pop into the chat. You've had Mathology around for a little bit. Hopefully this isn't the first time you're seeing the boxes, but if that's okay, if that's where you're at and you've just found them, that's great. But those that may have tried something, what in Mathology squares with your knowledge and understanding of mathematics? What is it that you like about the activities or the cards or um, the way the lessons go, or even a particular lesson that you did? I did I can't remember the name of the lesson, Connect 4 in grade 2 for fluency. Something like that. If you've used it before, if you could pop it into the chat. And sometimes I have to stop my share just to see the chat. Yeah, grab and go. And we will talk a little bit more about the intervention cards as well. They're sitting in the grade 2 box, but we will talk about also how grade 1s might want to borrow them sometimes. Anything else? Thanks, Christine. Yeah, the games and activities are really colorful. So, your packs of 10 cards, kids are automatically drawn to it, regardless of what's on it, because it looks fun, right? And some of you may also have the print little books. We'll talk a little bit about those as well. They can be worked together, and I'll be able to show you where, and I'm going to send you kind of an example of a long range plan that already matches the books to the units for you. So that will be coming. So thanks, everyone. In addition, I'm wondering, is there any particular questions that you currently have from Mathology that you're coming today with? Is there anything still circling in your head? Some of you sound like you have tried some things. Is there a question you have or a wondering you have? Sometimes when you work with something, you don't know everything around it. So you're like, I don't really have any questions. But hopefully today you'll find a few key points that you will take with you after the session. So I just kind of ask you to keep in mind as we go through, what are a few key points that you will take with you? So I invite you now and over the course of our time together to put in that question into the chat, and I will check periodically to make sure that we are covering it. We're going to be using some examples from the little books and from the kits to think about some examples. Yes, this is a very functional webinar, but it's also helpful to see how deep you can go with the mathematics. I know that over time, just like here in Ontario, the fractions outcomes have changed to have things a lot earlier. And in one of the grade 2 math little books, there is this story about sharing. And we can see how students come to understand this idea of fractions in a lot of ways. Depending on how things are shared, there may be different words that students may use for them. They may, when they're starting using some materials, just I folded it in 2 or I folded it in 4. They may actually do some measuring. I measured 10 centimeters and 10 centimeters. They may count. I'm going to have 5, you're going to have 5. And they may not necessarily say half. They may slice something in half. They may say, well, I'm seeing that I have 2 parts and you have 2 parts. Or they may come to that idea of fair share, that idea of division. And so I understand some of you have access to that idea of through the Math Little Books, and we're going to kind of show how they can be incorporated into that long range plan. In any case, everything that you have is really built on a foundation. Yeah, it looks just like a box of stuff, but that box of stuff is built on this invisible foundation of a learning progression, built on big ideas, and that within those big ideas, we can see that it goes left to right from early ideas about comparing fractions, and they start naming these fractions informally, all the way to where they are thinking about unit fractions, building other unit fractions, comparing fractions. And within Mathology, we can see how that builds from early K to later grade 3. This is a combination of a mathematical development, but also a synthesis of the curriculum across Canada. So we can see our outcomes within this development. And for Mathology, we can see how the actual lessons fit starting in grade 1. It has that idea of visually compare, partitioning wholes. As they move later into grade 2, they're starting to name those fractional parts and compare those fractional parts. And so this is a great picture to use. And when you have the Math Little Books, you also have access to what we call the e-text, which is a digital version that you can project this. And if you are not aware of the digital version, we'll make sure at the end that uh, I'll put the help email where you can get your school login. It is one school login because it's a library. You can go in and get access to any of the books. And, imagine a conversation just having about this, like, is this a fair share? Is this not a fair share? Why are they looking at this? How are the blueberries shared? But we can see quickly that students would say, no, this is not half. And if this is a blueberry pancake and you're really hungry, you would definitely want the bigger part. So you can kind of anticipate the types of conversations young students might want to have about this. And we can see that the little books also lie along that visual, along that continuum as well. So, it doesn't matter what you're doing in Mathology. When you move from grade 1 to grade 2, especially within the same school using a similar base resource, your students are going to develop some really solid foundational pieces. And I just kind of showed how that works in fractions. So when we think about the actual lesson, this is like a smaller part of that learning continuum, and it has everything that you need, kind of, in one place. So it allows me to think about that 3-part lesson structure. It also lists for me the materials that I might need. And we will talk in a minute about, it says Assessment Master 54, and that would be the other side of the card. This one actually doesn't say any master worksheets on it, but we will get to there because the worksheets were not included in the kits. That would have made the cost even more. And so we have them on our website, and Jesse also has them through a very easy link. So if you're brand new to these boxes and you're saying, oh, I pulled out a card, and in the materials section, it had worksheets and you didn't see them in there, that's why, because they sit somewhere else. So what I'm going to ask, we're going to take a look at just this one example, and I'm going to ask you to think about if you've used the lessons before, or if you're brand new, what about the lessons is helpful to you as an educator? So in this example, it is a grade 1 activity. It's early, it sits in the unit composing and decomposing, but it is about fractions. And the students are using paper strips, paper rectangle strings, and they are deciding how many people they share the whole with. So it is suggested that they share it with one other person, two other people, or three other people. And they might be folding these materials. They might have scissors. They might have modeling clay tools to help so that they start thinking about fair shares. They start comparing. Oh, I get a half, you get a half. And maybe when they cut it with the modeling clay wasn't exactly half, so they go back and they try it again. So they're really developing that eye towards fair sharing and equal fractions. And these are the materials they might be using to do it. So when you think about students using these types of things and you using the lesson structure, what do you see that might be helpful in the lesson for you? So whether you've done this one before or whether it's brand new to you, um, what features of this lesson might be helpful, knowing that the features, the organization of it is similar from lesson to lesson, grade to grade. And we'll just stop for a minute for those that may want to take a little bit look at this particular lesson or think about lessons they've done and what is it about the features that support you as an educator.
So, Kim, not sure if you can see the chat, but it says they look accessible and non-threatening to students, and 2 votes for the what to look for section so far.
Yeah. And I like the fact that some of you are just chiming in to what somebody else said, because when you actually look at this, what to look for, you can directly relate that to your outcomes. And so if students are able to fold or cut the items and make halves, third, fourths, they may not have the words for them. That may be something that you are introducing to them, but visually, they can make two equal parts. Visually, they can make four equal parts. That is actually more important than knowing the actual words for it, that they can visually do it. You know, if we think about young babies visually, they know kind of what they're looking for before they can actually say milk. As I think of baby references to where I'm at right now. And then the probing questions can relate directly to that. So this is a card that we're not going to be carrying the card around as students are using those materials to cut. But I might have a sticky notepad that I might have written a few of these prompting questions on. I might have a clipboard that I just kind of keep this on. It is wipe, wipe on, wipe offable. You may have a whiteboard marker that you take, you know, a couple of notes or something on here, or you circle something and you take a picture of it just for your own notes afterwards. Lots of different ways to think about this is a lot of information on the card. How do I use it in real time? The accommodations are really helpful to look at, especially if you've got a student card, because the other side of the student card, in about 85% of the cases, is an accommodation kind of down. Sometimes it's an enrichment, but the other side of the student card has that. In this case, we're not really working with that. Hopefully you don't hear noise in the background because I forgot my earbuds, but it will be temporary. And so by using paper folding, yes, students can visually do it, but they can start adding in their words that they need for it. And as we go along that learning continuum, you don't need to know the learning continuum, but we can see here how it is moving along for the student. So as the student gets in grade 2, the activity actually changes. And so this is now when they're actually using Cuisenaire rods or fraction rods. And here it says cut from master 46. So if you don't actually have them, there is a line master that they can use. So this is where now, instead of just naming those parts, they're actually comparing those parts. And again, that idea of, I'm going to just try to get rid of this in the area, that idea of what to look for, again, is really, really helpful because now we see how they've moved further along in complexity. Are the students able to use the rods to show different parts of a whole? Are the students able to label each part with a fractional name? So within the course of from age 6 to age 7 and on to age 8, they're getting into some really basic understandings of fractions, but we can see how it is so visual and so tactile. So using the materials that are here are really, really helpful. So we're going to think about another part of your resource, which is the assessment chart just sitting there. When teachers are using this, they're using it for assessment for learning as opposed to assessment of learning. In this case, we see that there are 6 boxes. When they reach the bottom right, that's when they're reaching curriculum outcomes. Can we give an ABC from this or level 1, 2, 3, 4? Maybe. But really, this is the idea of thinking about where your students are and what next steps are needed. So when we look at this example of the student, they used the green rod and they were asked to say what other rods compare to this in exact size. And so the student used the Cuisenaire rods and then drew a diagram. So now they're moving from that manual manipulation of something to a more visual, abstract representation of it. But I think that if you take a look at the picture, there may be something that is not exactly correct. So I know I wouldn't put them in box 6, but I also know that I wouldn't put them in box 1. So what I want you to do is, if you can see the screen, again, sometimes I'm not quite sure how big your screen is that you're looking at, is to take a look and see, I need to name where my student is at to think about next steps. And so would you name the student in box 2, box 3, box 4, box 5? Take a quick look and then put where you think you might place the student. Knowing that, then you can use the next step. I always say that, how we teach the lesson, it is ordered. Most kids will be doing exactly the same things at the same time. When we come to the assessment, depending on our previous knowledge of assessment, depending on what we see with the student, depends what we hear with the student, 2 educators may place the same student in different boxes, and that's okay. It is the idea of, if you place them too early along this box, the next step they're just going to zip through. If you place them too far along and pull the next step, they might take a little bit more time to work through that next step, but there is no exact right box to place them in. So I'm hoping right now you are thinking about this and you are putting a number in the chat of where you might place this student. So take a look at the diagram and where you might place the student.
We have some votes for 3 and for 4.
Okay, so that's great. I'm glad that not all of you put the same thing. So again, depending on what you see in the work and depending on what you understand about fractions, you will place them somewhere along there and think about maybe something of the next step. So the way teachers might use this is exactly that. They have this on a clipboard, they're going around, they're helping students in the moment think about how they might move along and better see what they need to see. So in this case, it's a visual. The student in that red part of the third and the six, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they actually need to relate 6 to 6 spots. They did relate third to 3 spots, but visually they're not exactly even, you know? 1/3, 1/3, and the last third, if I was going to have this as a pie, I would want that last third because I actually get half of it. So, it's relating different things so the student can then visually make their support. Um, the way teachers might use this, it might be the wipe on, wipe off. They put a few names on it, they take a picture. The other way to use this, there is a worksheet that has this assessment chart on it. If you haven't found the link to all the worksheets, we'll make sure that you find it at the end. Some teachers will print off a few of these per unit. They may not print all of them. They may be focusing only on a few students. And again, they might just write the notes right in the printable worksheet because the printable one, instead of next steps, they have that space for you to make your notes. So using the wipe on, wipe off, printing them out and having a couple per unit. Again, we can't observe every student in every lesson, but maybe over the course of the unit, that's how you get your observational notes on your students. And knowing where they are, if you place them in box 3, there's a definite nice clue there to think about next steps. So
Kim,
I'm hope,
oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
I was going to say, I talked to a teacher the other day who's using these charts, and what she told me that I thought was really interesting was she uses these in parent conversations. And so it was a really effective way for her to specifically let the parents know what skills the student really owns and what they're working towards. You know, those conversations in our district, we have AC, AB, EX, and then an NY, so it's a 4-point scale. Those conversations like, well, what can my student do to get an AB? What can my child do to get an EX? This chart is what helped that teacher to have those conversations, especially with those AB, EX kids, because it shows exactly what that next step is on that progression of learning, exactly like you were explaining before.
That is a great way to use it because again, explaining this the same way, like a 6, they've reached curriculum outcomes. That 6 box, or if it's 4 boxes, or if it's 8 boxes, that last box is they've reached curriculum expectation. The first box is usually below grade level. And so somewhere in the middle is where you are deciphering where they are, but equally, that curriculum outcome is stated right there. That is what they are aiming for. And often in grade 1 and 2, the diagram helps the parent better understand what they're actually getting at because the diagram is directly related to the tool that was used in the lesson. So some teachers will use them this way. Some teachers will look at the last activity, which is a consolidation activity. And usually the chart is a little bit more generic, and you might use that through the whole unit because often it is a little bit more generic and less specific to the actual activity. So yes, you can use the daily lesson parts or you can use the consolidation chart that way. But we can see there's so many uses for it. But it's really up to you to decide how you're going to use this information and what is helpful to you. So I hope over first two sections of thinking about the lesson, thinking about the assessment, you might have jotted down a couple of key points that you might take with you. You may have done a lot of this already, but maybe it tweaked to something else to say, yeah, I think I want to use it in this way. And so that's the idea of having something that is easily pullable. You've got a consistent framework. You've got that teacher support right there and the what to look for. And then you've got that support of finding out where the student is and next step. It's great that it's got great lessons, but unless we know where to bring the student to next, we're not quite sure what to do. And so sometimes that next step might require some additional things you might want to do. And in grade 2, you have those pieces of the yellow intervention cards and the math every day. Grade 2 is kind of that sweet spot for intervention, and that's why they are sitting in the grade 2 kit. But many of you are very experienced educators. Um, Grade 2, I taught for about 4 years. And like, I still remember one of my students, Brian, and I'm thinking, oh, if only I'd had mathology, he wouldn't sit there with his head on the table all the time and pretend to sleep. I just, we have all those kids that I feel like I failed because I didn't have this stuff at the time and I didn't have that knowledge. I didn't have anything to see where is the student? How can I help them think about next steps? I was new to grade 2. I didn't know the math. Um, After a couple of years, I got a lot better at it. But something like this, having these two pieces of a lesson, I find are really, really helpful to have. So, if you are brand new to the kits, you may see that one of the kits has number in it. And, oh, yeah, sorry. One of them, yeah, one of them has all the number strand, and one of them has everything else in it. In addition, the grade 2 has the yellow intervention cards and the math every day. So they are organized in a very organized way. So if you have not yet done this and you still have cellophane around it, you might want to unwrap it so that the teacher card and the student cards go together. And this main card that is sitting in a pack comes at the front, and you see that there is a unit. There is a unit structure to it, and everything goes together. It's got a teacher card. Some of them will have student cards. Some of them in grade 2 will have intervention cards, and some will have math every day that go with the unit. Now, these are ordered just in the order of units, but we wouldn't necessarily want to do all number first and then everything else second. So it's like, what do I do and how do I do it? So those that in the older grades, they have mathology.ca. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go there. Um, yeah, I'm just going to go there and show you what I'm going to make sure Jesse has copies of, so that you can go in and grab them and make them your own. So just like the lessons, they are sitting there. You can make them your own once you see everything around them. The same with these lesson plans. What I'm going to do is I am just showing you this. I'm going in and I'm going to show you a printable grade 1. So what I'm going to send Jesse is a copy of this. So what happens here is you have, it's a suggested order. So here, this is mixing and matching units. but I have patterning first. I just feel sometimes in the early grades, it is a way to engage students without them having to have a lot of number um, concepts. And kids can find their way in easy. The other advantage here is that if you have the math little books, we've suggested which math little book might go within which unit, especially when that comes to things like number. There, some can be used in various places. I know in some of the lessons for additional work, it says try using this little book, and it might be different than what's here, but this is a good guide for you to think about which little book goes to which unit. It's also a way to think about which number concepts might come first. So in this case, we're saying, counting comes fairly early, spatial reasoning comes fairly early. This is for grade 1, but you can wait till later in the year to think about composing and decomposing and measurement because they have to use addition and subtraction and fluency. So it's not to say you have to do it in this order, but having this sheet and thinking about this as a logical order, it's in a Word document, you can change it around, but then you might want to organize your kits in this same way. Yes, one box says number and one box says the other. But if you put your units in this order, then it's really easy just to go to the next packet and pull it out and start using it. And so we found this to be really helpful for people that don't have mathology.ca, that we provide them with a sample unit and a sample way to match the math little books as well. So I am going to make sure that Jesse has a copy of this for grade 1 and this for grade 2. Jesse, can you tell me if there are many teachers that would be teaching a 1-2 or a 2-3?
Yeah, good question. There'll be quite a few doing a combined grade, either or a 1-2 or a 2-3. Yeah.
Okay, so then the other thing I'm going to send, let's just go to 2, grade 1 and 2. The other thing I'm going to send is this, in that now, instead of you copying and pasting uh, from one to the other, I think that that would be this one. No. Um, Let me just do it one more time. So this one, yes. Okay. So this one now has the grade 1 unit with a suggested grade 2 unit right underneath it. So now you've got them side by side. Again, it's in Word, so if you want to add things in there, you're more than welcome to do that. But at least now it does have that suggestion. Sometimes they're the exact same name, but here we are suggesting in grade 1, you might be doing spatial reasoning with number relationships in grade 2. Doesn't necessarily mean that you are doing 2 different lessons. You may decide to do estimating quantities for both your grade 1 and 2 and use the accommodations for your grade 1. But at least here, then you have the way to do this. And then if you want to copy and cut and paste to what you actually use, because we don't have time to teach 2 lessons every single day, then you can make it your own. And then you'll have a really good copy of kind of which lessons you picked where. Sometimes it's a grade 1 lesson and you're using the extension for grade 2. Sometimes it's a grade 2 lesson and you're using your accommodations for grade 1. So I'm just going to stop for a minute. I'll make sure Jesse has this at the end. But maybe if there's other suggestions that you've used for long range plans or organizing your kits in a certain way, if you can just put that tip into the chat right now. How have you organized your long range plan, or how have you organized your kits?
So we have a few people saying that they use my long range plan. This is just a general one that I've made, looking at the curriculum. So I love that. So if you're using the one that I made, then you're kind of cross-referencing and going through the kit, finding patterns, finding measurement and stuff. That's a great idea. That totally works. And Christine brought up the Today tab.
Yes.
That's this one.
Thanks, Jesse. If you can show it.
Well, this is great because if we're working on this lesson, I can put this in here, take the card out, and then I can easily reference it, put the card back, and grab the next one.
And that's helpful because then if it's got the activity cards, it goes in that folder. So the night before you put it in there. And it's also helpful because if it's got the math every day, not the math every day, the ones at the back, Jesse, the ones like the 10 frame, the hundreds chart,
Like the multi-use?
the multi-use, because maybe they're going to use the hundreds chart so that you can pull those and put them up front because they can't go with every lesson. They just sit at the back. So if you can just pull it up, if you can see Jesse's screen. Yeah. So then you grab your 10 of those and put it in the today file. And then that way it saves you from looking in 2 or 3 places for the stuff you're going to need for today. The other thing people would put in that today section is any of the line masters that are needed. So they have them printed out and ready to go. So, Jesse, I'm wondering if you can put in the chat um, your link. I'm not, oh yeah. They've just updated our website and I haven't even gone into it yet to actually find how they reorganized our worksheets.
Okay, let's see. Oh, I see. It does look a little bit different. So I might have to, it still works, but I might have to update the link so it's a little more clear. If you go to the EPD site and then go to, there's red links like grade 1 and grade 2, it'll take you to these pages, but it defaults to just the little book line masters. You want to choose Alberta version, right? It's one of the tabs along the top.
Yes.
Or is this the little books? No, activity kit line masters.
Yeah, is that on your website or you've put the link in?
Yeah, it's this is what my website links to this page. Does this look right to you?
Okay. Okay, you found the new one. They've just changed it today, and we have not had an overview of anything. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, I have no idea where to find anything now. I've had it the same way for 7 years, and now all of a sudden, today of all days, they decide to change it.
Great
So
timing.
yes. So this is the link to the grade 1 activity line masters, and you do want the Alberta version. So when you look at, you might want to do more the individual Word files because then you can modify them as needed. Um, and then you will need to spend some time organizing them because they're not labeled as grade 1, unit 1 in the name of the lesson. So you need to think about a unit first, download them, make sure you know that they're in a folder and you know which line master is which. Because we can see here that like the supports are sitting here as well as any worksheets that are needed, as well as any assessment charts that you may use as an educator, as well as everyday cards like the hundreds chart. So there are a lot of things sitting here. Yes, you can go in and every day go in and pick It'll say on your lesson, line master 8, that you can go in every day and do that. But if you spend 20 minutes or half an hour, you can organize them all in your computer and find them and print them easily. What a lot of teachers will do is they will, I know it's a lot, but they will print one copy and organize it in a binder. And
Yeah.
then that way you can flip through and see things a little bit easier. I wouldn't suggest you print 20 copies of everything because sometimes you're not going to be using that one. You decide to modify it or you decide to change it in some way or not use that one. But having one copy, especially, do 2 or 3 units at a time, print it out, and then that
Was it?
oops.
Oh, hello?
I think I'm back now.
Yep. All
Yeah.
good.
Because you are using the kits and you may prefer print, making a binder of those worksheets is helpful. The other thing teachers would do then, instead of just having them all in a binder, they put them in a little folder and they put them with their units. So now they have a master 5 or 6 sheets that go with their counting unit, a master 5 or 6 sheets that go with their um, patterning unit. So now everything is in the box that you need. Yes, it's a little bit of work getting those copies, but keeping it in one binder if there's room inside your box, or keeping them in individual unit folders. That way you can look through when you're planning your unit, you look through your folder and yeah, I need 20 of these, 20 of these, but none of these. Print them off and you've got them for the next week or two and they're sitting in your unit. Not that you have to do every unit, but I would, when I'm pre-planning a unit, I would probably do that. I'd have my 5 or 6 worksheets, I'd pull them out, I'd look at my lessons, which lessons am I going to do? And print out those. And then I've got my stuff printed for the next couple of weeks that the students are going to use. So that is a tip, an important tip for using the actual books and the kits. So if you're brand new to the kits and you haven't seen this is what makes the kits work, is all your line masters. Is there any other tips other than putting it in a little folder by unit or in a binder, one copy, that anybody else has used?
The teacher that
Okay,
I
so
saw the other day with the assessment, I just want to point out that the assessments are on here, right? And so what she did was she printed these. I'll open the PDF just so that it shows up in the tab. This is the same as the back of the cards, right?
yes.
And she printed these for every student and had these in a separate binder to be able to track.
Ah,
So that's just another way that you could use them.
yeah.
Like you said, you could write on this or you could print
Yes.
this from the page.
And sometimes teachers will use that for the consolidation activity, especially if it's your
Mhm.
first time through. It's pretty
Yeah.
hard to observe every student in every lesson, but some teachers will just print the consolidation lesson and put that in a binder so that they have that for every unit. Some teachers will print out one of these for every lesson, put it in a binder, and when they have the chance during the lesson, 2 or 3 students, they might take notes. So all the assessment sheets are in one binder. All the student worksheets are in another binder. So that is another way definitely of using this. When you think about it, there's like about 100 pages of assessment charts. Not necessarily that you'd use them all, but then you can easily flip through and see which ones you want to use in a unit or not. So again, Mathology is a resource, not a program. There's no one way to use this stuff, but hopefully today you have seen some different ways to use the materials that are here. Sometimes, yes, it is 100% correlated to your curriculum, but maybe in a unit you might want to supplement with some other things. When you get to addition and subtraction, there might be 5 or 6 lessons, and you're like, oh no, I need 2 or 3 weeks of this. Well, you're all experienced teachers, and you might supplement as you go with other things. One of the other things a lot of teachers use is the math little books and the teacher guide that is sitting there. There's lots of great activities in those teacher guides that are great to supplement and fun activities. And the lessons are very thorough. It's organized a little differently, but there's a before, a during, and an after in those as well. So, the couple of things I am going to leave with you. One is I'm going to leave you with help at mathology.ca. So, if you have any questions about Mathology, you can email that. Our team looks at it and gives it out to who needs to answer it. If you have the math little books in print in your school and you don't know how to access the digital part of it, it is a digital library that comes with it for your school. It is one username and login for everybody in your school. Please email help@mathology.ca. Say, I'm from such and such a school and we have the math little books, but I need a login. Often when teachers change or, they the login is not in a central place, we forget that that's available, and so you have digitally teacher guides to plan with. You can use different grades if you want. You can project the book and have a really nice story time together as a class. I'm going to send Jesse the examples of the long range plans so that you can print that out if you want. Um, and if you want to put that in a different order, it's a Word document. You just move them around. Jesse's order may be a little bit different, so you can just move them around and go in that order. And then just to make sure that you do have that link to all the worksheets and think about how you're going to organize your worksheets and how you're going to organize your assessment charts. So, I'm hoping that you have kind of taken note of a few points that you are going to take with you. And on your way out today, I'd appreciate if you just want to share one of those points that you are going to take with you. What is it that was helpful today that you might go back to explore or use in a way that maybe you haven't used before? Yeah, and if someone puts something up that you are going to give it a go, put that in there. Yeah, multi-use cards are great, whether you're doing Mathology or not. They're sitting in there just waiting for you to use really easily. And we've got a couple of likes on each one of those. Yeah, the black line masters are really important because a lot of the activities can't be done without those black line masters. And they also give you a way to have a product a lot of times of the student's work, pen and paper. That's a wonderful way to kind of take note of where they're at.
I remember in the first year of our new curriculum implementation for math, when Division One teachers got Mathology.ca licenses, the teachers really enjoyed Mathology.ca from what I heard. I wasn't the consultant yet, it was still Shelley. But the biggest complaint was the printing, that there was there was all this color printing that needed to be done, like all of these kind of cards like this,
Mhm.
especially in the grade 1 and 2. And so these boxes didn't exist at that time. And so I really, as soon as we saw that these came out, we bought as many as we could because we thought, yes, there is still some printing, but in this world now where everything is digital, what a gift to be able to have something physical to be able to teach
It
with. So
it is
that's great.
physical, it's colorful, and it's hardy. Once
Yeah.
you print from Mathology.ca, a lot of people are printing in black and white. It's not as engaging. Sometimes they'll put it in a binder sleeve, which helps protect it a little bit. But the cards are just so easy. You pull out, they don't rip. We're talking 6 and 7 year olds. Not ripping is an important feature that
And it's
paper
exactly the
often
same,
does.
right? Like there's nothing missing in these that isn't on Mathology.ca.
So I hope that you have a lot of fun with your students doing the different activities that are there and lots of great math conversations over the course of the year. Again, that help at mathology.ca is your kind of lifeline. Just send any questions you have about anything that you're using, and we have a really quick turnaround to help you out. And then that way, Jessie can just keep going doing the work that she needs to do, and we can help you along the way with any questions you have. Yeah, early math, like sometimes people say, oh, it's just early math. But, getting the right concept at the right time for the right student is very difficult. Early math concepts um, move into the abstract really, really fast for these little kids. And I found a lot of these activities, they're made by teachers just like you. That's why they work. Um, I think still some of my geometry activities are sitting in the grade one kit. That when the new curriculum came about, a few of them still managed to survive in there. And I did them with like lots of little kids before I wrote them, and I changed them because this 4-year-old was working on something, and I'm like, no, that's not really the right picture for him, or so they've been tried with a lot of people, and they're Canadian. From across Canada, teachers and researchers have made this stuff. So that's partly why I'm still here, because teachers have always said how much they love it. So enjoy the activities, and I wish you lots of fun with your kids this year.